Hello, Mohit sir. Okay, I think I'm live now. All right, all right. I can see the live icon. All right. Okay, so I've shared the material as well. A very good morning to all of you. I hope you all are doing fine. All right. So yes, any problem from the last class, you can post. Okay. Okay, I'm visible now. All right. So I was just publishing the message that wait for a minute. All right. Since then, so if there's any problem from the last class, anything that you wish to ask, you can post your query in the live Q&A. I'll be checking over there. Okay, okay, Siddhi. Okay, Saroj. Good morning, Sanjana. Okay, all right. Okay, so we finished with the Shadow Lines by Amitabh Ghosh in the last class. So if there's any problem regarding the themes that we discussed, you can ask me. If you have already read the text, if you already heard what was there for you to understand, and still you are not able to relate or correlate some of the issues that we discussed in a panoramic sense, you can just ask me. All right. Other than that, we are going to start with In Custody by Anita Desai today. So I'm going to quickly switch to that material. Okay, just wait. Good morning, Upasana, Roshni, Siddhi, Parovi. Yes, I hope you all are doing fine. All right, so I'm switching to Anita Desai's In Custody. So over here, you can see the study material has already been shared on the group. I just saw the Telegram group as well. And if you do not have the material, you can easily download it from the Soul official website. Even after that, you're not able to find it, you can just concentrate on what I'm sharing right now. All right, and look for and download the material as in when it's convenient to you, which is you should do it as soon as possible, I must say. So we are going to do the introduction, then we are going to talk about a little bit about the biography of the writer. There have been some questions regarding, ma'am, if the biography of the writer is important, do we need to learn it or do we need to write it in the question answers? See, the biography of the writer, for example, there is a quote which says that a writer cannot be removed from his work. Whenever he or she writes, there is a part of him that or her that he or she reflects onto the work. That is, if you're looking at a work and analyzing the same, you will have to also look at the background of the writer. What traumatic experience is he writing from? What happy experience is he writing from? What is his stance? How was his upbringing? How it has influenced his way of seeing the world? Has there been some momentous event in his life that have, in a way, by and large, decided what kind of person he or she is going to become? So these facts are important for you to correlate. You necessarily do not need to have to, if you ask me if it's a necessity, if it's a prerequisite to write an answer, then no, the answer is a clear cut no. But obviously, if you know something about it and you can correlate and you can write it in the examination, it looks good. It shows that you have a thorough knowledge of the background of the text and the writer as well. Clear? So it is for your better, if it is for your own better understanding of the text. All right. So I'll just be checking over here. Good morning, Priyanka, Pooja, Darshita, Shruti, Nikita, Nidhi, Preeti. All right, then let's begin. I hope this material is visible to you. Just give me a minute. All right, I'll be back. Just give me 2 minutes. I'll be switching to some one more thing that I have decided. So let me see if I can find it. Till then, you read this. Start reading the introduction. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be telling you what pointers to look at. All right, I have some marked pointers. Read the introduction meanwhile. Read the introduction, all of you. I have some highlighted material. I'm looking for the same. Meanwhile, you read the same. All right, I hope you saw it. So, as you can see, it's a very longish study material that we have. So, I've decided on to some highlighted points. Now, I'm going to tell you about them. Okay, just look at the study material, focus on the study material. Although you have to read the complete study material, that is a must. All right, but when we are dealing with it in the class, it's not possible to read the complete material. So, I have marked some. So, let me just point those out for you. Okay, good morning, all of you. Yes. Okay, okay. Now let's look at. Okay, so let's talk about this. I'll be pointing some important passages and, some important phases that you have to read about in the novel. So do try to keep up, all right? I'm going to go with a very quick introduction. Anita Desai is an eminent writer of the Indian English fiction who is known across the world for representing poignant pictures of Indian and their sensibilities. Her characters not only represent the milieu in which they are born, but also at the same time often are victims of the circumstances from which they try to struggle their way out. Very important line. Why? I'll tell you. Because in the novel In Custody is a similar kind of novel where protagonist Devin is shown to be caught in the quagmire of his existence and he tries to pursue his passion for Urdu poetry, how he's caught up in a web which he himself, along with the circumstances, create for himself. It is a great psychological and sociological novel having a depth which very few Indian novelists could achieve in their works. This unit of self-instructional material is designed to make ourselves acquainted with Anita Desai from a biographical point of view and also to comprehend a contribution to the development of the genre of novel in Indian literature. Anita Desai is the mother of which famous writer? Kiran Desai. And she wrote The Inheritance of Laws, which went on to win what? The Booker Prize. All right. Now let me tell you. All right, just 1 second. Yes. Now, now come to. Okay, see, you have to read all of it. It's very important, very good material, but we are because of shortage of time, we cannot refer to everything. I'll just tell you which part. So switch to page number 3 now. Cry the peacock voices in the city, bye bye blackbird, where shall we go this summer? All these are work by Anita Desai, Fire on the Mountain, Clear Light of the Day, In Custody, The Village by the Sea. So these are the works that you can read and read the summary for. If you're interested, you can go for the whole novel as well. Over here also In Custody, you should go for the master text. The protagonist of In Custody, Devin Sharma, is an ineffectual but well-meaning. This is on page number 6 we are referring to directly. The protagonist of In Custody, Devin Sharma, is an ineffectual but well-meaning young man whose problem, unlike those of the other protagonists of Anita Desai's novels, are not just personal and private but public and social. Devin works as a Hindi lecturer in a college at Mirpur. He has great passion for Urdu poetry. The town has a Muslim area and a Hindu area represented by the mosque and the temple, respectively. Devane is asked by one of his friends to write an article on poetry of Noor for his journal. In spite of his poor financial circumstances, he ventures to interview Noor as he wants to become popular as a critic. But when he goes to Chandni Chowk, he finds himself in an alien and suffocating atmosphere. He finds the celebrated poet completely immersed in tackling people who surround him. Alright, Devane likes Noor for his active imagination, That was what Noor's words did, placed frightening and inexplicable experiences like time and death at point where they could be seen and studied in safety. Devane finds it extremely difficult to translate his aesthetics sensibility into a written document in spite of his best efforts to overcome obstacles like Noor's poor health and the friction between his wives. Even the attempt to record Noor's view on the poetry fails. Devane feels that his friend cheated him, but in spite of the crisis he fails, he thought of Noor's poetry being read, the sound of it softly murmuring in his ear. He had accepted the gift of Noor's poetry, and that meant he was a custodian of Noor's very soul and spirit. It was great distinction. He could not deny or abandon that under pressure. So, are you able to understand? What are we talking about? We are talking about what? We are talking about the basic introduction of the novel. All right, basic introduction to the story or what the trajectory is, what are the main characters, what are the main concerns, how things get complicated. All right, so all these are the hints that we have read about. All right, now let us. Yes, it's Cogmayanidhi. Novels you're asking about? Okay, I'll tell you. Wait, first let's do this. Okay, now come to. Okay, so over here, this is also good in custody introduction. Let me just point out some paragraphs to you. Anita Desai's fame and charisma as a writer is not only known within India but also throughout the world. That in custody was shortlisted for Booker Prize talk volume about the nature, content, and style of the book, which not only made the author achieve fame but also made available to the readers an experience of knowing India and its sensibilities. All right, so are you able to understand? Very important, how the novel changed the scenario of Indian writing in English. Very important over here. So these are some of the pointers that I'm going to give you. You can highlight it in your respective study material. All right. So then come to paragraph. This is an important one. All right. So now, okay, over here. It is to be stated here that in custody deals with Indian life from very close quarters. So the idea of Indian cityscape, landscape that Anita Desai so well understood and portrayed. Very important. It is to be stated, I am repeating, that in custody deals with Indian life from a very close quarters. It represents the Indian ethos, full stop, the small time of Mirpur and the big city of Delhi, the old Delhi primarily being its context. The novel justly portrays a small town and the big city of India in such a realistic manner that when we read the novel, we are transferred to those cities and times and experience both the richness as well as drudgery of these places. The idea of vivid imagery that she draws important, even though. So when I'm pointing out these passages for you, you can just mark them, and what you can do, you can read it again and again. What will it do for you in the examination? Even if there's a question that you're not able to very well understand, what you can do, you can write about the thematic importance of the novel. You can write something about the background in way it will show that you have actually taken the pain to read some of it at least. All right, even though it is completely your responsibility, and it should be your responsibility to read the master text. It's very, very important. You should not skip the master text. This is just a supplementary material. Also refer to this. You should also read the master text, obviously. All right, then in other words, it can be said that in the novel In Custody, Anita Desai makes both a sociological as well as psychological study. So, sociological, why? Sociological in the sense when she's talking about the society, the idea of how the poet Noor Jahan, if we talk about specifically about Noor and about the writer, how they're surviving, what are the social constructions which have, completely overpowered them. And when we talk about psychological, we are talking about the idea of how the main protagonist thinks that he can make it big in life, make it big as a critic, wants to pursue his interest, but is not able to do so. All right. So these are the things that we have to pinpoint to. That is psychological struggle, something in the subconscious that has always been there in our mind that we did not pursue. Or for example, there might be some desires and dreams that we pushed away in our subconscious, and when we get a chance they try to again project themselves onto the reality. So similar things happen here. So we are talking about the psychological struggle of the main protagonist. We are also talking about the psychological parameters from which we are going to analyze this novel in terms of identity crisis, in terms of where do I belong. These are the poignant, pertinent questions that the main characters will be asking. Then the idea of the new world order and how much of a space the old world order has. The idea of different worlds coming in conjunction and what combinations, permutations and combinations do they form. So this kind of in-depth study, when you're trying to analyze when you're trying to do a psychoanalytic study, that is, you're trying to understand the mind frame of a person, what are his inferiority complexes, what are the fears that he or she might have, what are the subconscious suppressed desires that we are talking about, what are the various identity crises and formation struggles that he or she is going through. So very interesting story in a way. You can have a panorama of critical frameworks that you can employ, that you can talk about over here. So let's again switch back. Let's continue. Now come to page number. Okay, let's read this one also. This is important. In custody, psychological portal. I'm zooming in the image for you to have a clear vision. As being mentioned a while ago, Anita Desai is a skilled artist who not only represents the other realms of our existence, but moreover focuses on the inner realms of our lives. All her characters can be seen to be psychological studies. Not only the characters like Devain, Murad, Noor, Sarlam, Imtiaz Begum, and others are studied in the novel in custody from a psychological point of view, but the stream of consciousness technique that is often used in a novel prove that Anita Desai is a master of portraying the inner dilemmas and turmoil of her characters in such a way that the readers can feel the depth of the abyss that they are into. So what is it about the stream of consciousness? All right. So stream of consciousness is a style of writing whereby, for example, you might have heard about Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, or the portrait of an artist by James Joyce. So all these are in the trajectory or in the framework of stream of consciousness. Now what is stream of consciousness? For example, if I'm reminded of something, all right, I'm trying to remember something, or if there's, for example, if I see a flower and I'm reminded of the time that I went onto a trip and there was this place which was full of flower, and there was a flower valley. All right, now from that flower valley, I'll be transported to the time of how I traveled to that flower valley. Then I'll be transported to the times of how it was difficult to get the tickets of the same. Then to the time of how there was a great jam over there. So the idea of one thing leading to another, no chronological order is formed. For example, when I'm thinking about the kind of traffic that we had, I can go back to 2 years back, whereby again I'm in the same scenario of being stuck in a jam, of being irritated by a fact, particular fact, or being happy about the fact that this was the same place I visited 3 years later, 3 years before. All right, so what is happening here? I'm when one thing is leading me to another thing, there is no chronological order that I'm forming. For example, I'm not saying that what I experienced years before, I'm going to think about it first and then the next and then the present. No, that is not how it works. Stream of consciousness works in a way that there is no proper chronological order which is being followed. It's a random trial and error, we can say, or it's a random selection that we do. All right, and one thing leading to another, a string of thoughts that you follow. So this is stream of consciousness. So this is one of the most pertinent and substantial example of psychological struggles of any character and the psychoanalysis of the novel by a novelist. All right, it constitutes how, when you're thinking about the human dilemmas, when you're thinking about any kind of crisis that a person goes through, there is not a chronological order that the person follows, and there is a lot of chaos that we are talking about, chaos, chaos, and ruckus that we are talking about, a lot of struggles, a lot of thoughts coming in one place, and still you're not able to divert them to the right directions. All right, it's all mixed up. All right, so there is no proper chronological order. There is no, traditional framework that we have to follow. It is all about where our thoughts lead us on to. Clear? That is the style of writing of the novel. So do not get confused about the chronological order, about how one thing is reminding the person of another. All right. Yes, we are. Preeti, even if the study material is not provided to you as yet by, by the college, just do one thing, download it from the Soul website. It's easily available on the Soul website. You just have to go to the students academic section, then you can choose your own course, and then you can download all these study material that we are referring to. I've also shared the same on the Telegram group that we have. Yes, Nidhi, the main character is Devain. Isha, yes, ask me, what is it? Sandhya, you are saying, ma'am, is the stream of consciousness can be called narrative within the narrative like it was in the Shadowlands. Yes, it can be called a narrative within a narrative, but it's a distinctively different style of writing, so you should also learn about the same. Okay? All right, then let's carry on with this one. Okay, so okay, can someone also post a Telegram group link? I think some people are asking for the same. Though I have published it many times, I'm going to do it again. Just wait. Wait. I'll be posting when somebody shares. I'll publish it. All right. Then you can join the group. Kanchan, just wait. Okay. Someone just post the Telegram link over here. I'll publish it. For those who have not yet joined the group, they can join the same. Okay. Let me see. I'll just copy it. Wait. Okay. Dipanchu has posted the same. I've published it. You can check the published section. Siddharth, you're saying, Ma'am, Devin is going to face a lot of epiphanies and calamities. Yes, that is also there. So I've published the link that Dipanshu Dhimana shared. You can just join the group. This is the official group. Do join it. I've shared the study material and others over there. Okay, so do join that. Then, okay, yeah. Check the published section for those who are asking. Okay, so creating characters, this is on page number 10, creating characters which are unforgettable in one of the chief make markers of Anita Desai as an artist. She created her characters in such a manner that they seem like haunted protagonists who are living in the world full of worries and anguishes. It is these anguishes of these characters that they try to fight in progression of the plot of the novel. In custody, we meet the incredible characters like Devin Sharma and Noor Shahzahanabadi. We also meet characters like the stony-faced Sarla, wife of Devin, and supposedly female mafia Imtiaz Begum, second wife of Noor. These characters make the novel such that once we get accustomed to these characters through our readings of the novel, they are forever inched in, egged, it should be, in our mind. Such is the power of Anita Desai's characterization that we are taken from our world to the world of the characters and made to suffer the anguishes and anxieties. For more details on characterization, it refers to the unit on characters. Alright, so you can use these passages for introduction, very important. Okay, now let me tell you, we will do this one. Status of Urdu language, then Devin as preserver of Urdu language and art. Noor company. All right, these are important. Let me just cover all of these, all of this. Yes, we'll have to cover all of this. Okay, we will see. Yes. Kanika, you're asking, so basically the theme is, ma'am, the theme is the relationship between physical and mental confinement, or is it about searching identity? It is about all of these, about the mental constrictions, about the physical constrictions, about the circumstantial constrictions. There is not one reason that a person is not able to do something, all right? It might be a self-afflicted suppression that the person is practicing. It might be something that the society has put or superimposed onto himself, or it is something that arises from the mere circumstances of his life. So all these mixture is there in this story. It is very interesting, very rich in content. All right, I hope that's clear to you now. Upasana, you are saying, ma'am, is it important to make character sketch of each character, or is it okay to just read highlight of all characters? See, it is very important that you read the soul study material. It's very, very good. You know, when you read it, you will get an idea of what are the important factors that I'm going to talk about that I need to know. It will help you in the examination also. Apart from the master text, you should read the material for sure. Okay, so read it in full flare. Okay, now let us proceed. Status of Urdu language. Anita Desai's novel In Custody with the protagonist Devain's relationship with the famous Urdu poet Noor Shah Zainabadi as he meets Noor to interview him to write a feature on Murad Urdu magazine Awaz. Alright, it is interesting. So his friend Murad has asked him to take an interview of Noor. Alright, and now what happens? Noor Zenabadi that he has asked him to take an interview for, and Devane from the very beginning has always had this flair for Urdu language. He wanted to learn the language and read all the work, but he did not have the right time and circumstances to pursue the same. But now, when he got the chance of interviewing a famous Urdu writer, he thinks that why not to leap at the chance and make the full use of it. Alright, so what happens? It is interesting to know the novel In Custody deals with an art and artistic endeavors in India, especially in Urdu language, which is often thought to be a dying language in India, as most people neither speak nor use the language in their everyday conversation, as well as in their literary outputs or any other formats of writing. The poet Noor is of the opinion that Urdu as a language died in 1947 and what remains of the language is nothing but its ghost. Probably the poet Noor is satisfied to some extent in thinking in such a manner as Urdu as a language has lost its pristine glory which it once used to enjoy. It was thought to be a language of much refinement and polish, but with the onslaught of modernity, English language has taken such a toll on the language environment of India that Urdu has lost its glory it once used to enjoy. So the idea of loss of the real essence of Urdu language, the idea of an endangered language, the idea of the writer talking about preserving the same, the importance of preserving the same are all that have been mentioned. So when you ask me about the background of the novel and how much importance does it have when you are writing an answer, then it has a substantial importance. Why? Because when you understand that what are the context and pretext that the writer is talking from or coming from, only then will you be able to really understand what is it that the writer is trying to put across to the readers, what is it that the writer wishes for us to understand and work upon. All right, so it's very important. So all these lines, all these passages that we are reading, you can read it on your own as well. You should read it on your own and try to analyze and think of these thematic importances of what the writer is talking about. So then come to page number, this is on page number 11 only. Devain as a preserver of Urdu language and art. If one, if one, the one, if on the one hand, it should be on. If on the one hand there is this notion that Urdu is going to be a dead language because of its lost prestige And because of its being not valued even by its own speech community, the Muslims, there is another aspect which is shown as far as Urdu language is concerned. It is efforts of preservation of the Urdu language. Murad, though a manipulator and a person with ulterior motives in the novel, has taken up the mantle of saving Urdu language from disgraceful death by championing its tradition through his magazine Awaz. Alright, Murad may be a person who has some other motive behind his efforts of preservation of Urdu language through his magazines, but he is one who takes the efforts in beginning of the novel to travel from Delhi to Mirpur to request Devain to interview the famous Urdu poet Noor so that the magazine gets some glory and the love for Urdu poetry is revived. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that Murad, the character who asks Devain to go and interview Noor Shah Zainabadi, he's one of the characters who always had opportunistic stance to even preserving his own mother tongue, that is Urdu language, through his magazine Awaz. But what is happening here, even though there are ulterior motives as to why he wishes to preserve the language, how he, or even though we can say that he's a trickster, the way he tricks and manipulates the way, it is important for us to still understand that at least he's making an effort towards the right direction. Maybe the motives and the intentions are not good, but the efforts that he's making is going to help the language by and large. All right, because if there is going to be a magazine which is going to interview and trying interview Urdu poets and other writers, and which is constantly publishing material in the same language, obviously it is paving a way for preserving the same. All right, I hope you understand that. Is it clear? Are you able to understand the context of the novel? Pooja, yes, study material you have to refer to for sure, but yes, for examinations also refer to other critical material. Harpreet, you're asking what is the meaning of pristine glory and practitioners, the idea of the golden era that she talks about. Okay, I'll send the picture of the same on the Telegram group, the novel. Yes, Pooja, the book conveys the meaning of a fairness of Urdu language, right? Khushi Tiwari was writing Noor Shah Zainabadi, the poet also lost by the time as his language of poetry lost. He thought the language died in contrast when the narrator first saw him. Yes. Yes, Isha, right. Okay, Sandhya, good, you understood Ritika. Okay, okay, Siddharth. All right. So let's continue with the same. Now come to page number 12. Devain, the hero without heroism. All right, so modern man is not a hero in the classical sense. Modern man is not a hero in the classical sense of the term. Modern heroes do not fight with their swords and emerge victorious. Modern heroes are a bundle of fragmented cells trying to fight a battle with themselves, with the world that are living in, with the world that they are living in, and at the same time with the inherent dichotomies that the world offers to them. Devane is no different. He is not a hero in the classical sense of the term. He is the main protagonist of In Custody. He is someone who is trying his best to cope up with the challenges that are heaped on him by the society as well as by himself. That he can face those challenges even though that do not apparently seem so brave makes him a hero. Though he does not have any heroism, he is a man who is lost in life. He's fighting for a lost cause for the famous debauched Urdu poet Noor, and it is obvious therefore that he's not going to get any victory. Moreover, he will be submerged into a pathetic and tragic life as the society around him will not let him do what his heart desires. He loves Urdu language and poetry, but his love for it makes him suffer more and more in manifold ways. It is in his suffering, in his capacity to forbear those suffering that they wait, is a hero. So the modern hero they are saying is not a hero in the classical sense of the term. For example, what is a classical hero all about? The classical hero is all about being an exalted figure. All right, he should be an exalted figure. Only then the fall will be justified. You cannot talk about a person's fall or tragic end when the person is nobody. No, the person has to be known. The person has to be of some stature in the society. And finally, when there is a fall, there is a kind of pathos that we experience, a kind of pity that we have for the character. So the idea of the character having one tragic flaw. I hope you remember. I hope you have read about Aristotle's law for a heroic image, for a heroic character, that how a hero should be. He should be, not a she, obviously. He should be in the classical terms, because that is not a possibility. He should be an exalted figure, all right, a king, a kind of journal, any kind of person of stature, all right, any kind of person of importance and pertinence in the society, all right, then there has to be a kind of tragic flaw. And that comes about why? Because there is an essential fatal flaw, tragic flaw in the character, which is that of what? Hamartia, Hamartia. That is a tragic flaw of the character. For example, in the case of Othello, what is the tragic flaw? The tragic flaw is that of jealousy. All right, in case of, for example, Hamlet, what is the fatal flaw? The fatal flaw is that of procrastination, of indecisiveness, that he is not able to decide what he wishes to do. So the different tragic characters that we talk about, the idea of these, for example, in the case of Julius Caesar, you might be aware of this one at least. The tragic flaw is that of hubris, and hubris is what? Excessive pride. All right, that he will not consider other people warning and not pay heed to their warning. So the idea of this classical hero of being a great exalted figure with a tragic end, but here we do not have that kind of classical hero. We are talking about a normal man, a common man, who is going through his struggles, who is going through the struggles of his life, but still there is an act of heroism in his activity. Why? Because he is able to take every problem in his life in all the strides. That is, he takes the bull by the horn. If there's a problem that he wishes to address, he's going to go about it, go after it, and solve it. All right. So this is the kind of personality that we see when we talk about a normal character. There is no physical, there is no physical exertion of showing that this is a spectacle that you can see and make out that this is the tragic hero that we are talking about, the classical hero, the heroism that we're talking about. No act of explicit bravery, but the very idea of following his own dreams, making efforts, dealing with grassroots problems make him a hero and render his activity heroic. All right, I hope that's clear to you. Are you able to understand the context? Do understand the context. All right, try to understand what is it in the story that you can relate to with these also. Yes, Nidhi. Yes, Isha, I understand. Nidhi, you are saying, ma'am, both Murad and Devin wants to save the language Urdu. Is it losing its glory? Am I right? Yes. Yes, Sadaf. Okay, Nidhi, it's clear. Good. So, are you able to understand the context? We have talked about the context. We have talked about the narrative technique. Now we are talking about the basic structure. All right. Okay, Nikita. What else? If there's any query, you can post. I'm checking. Yes, we are done with shadow lines. We are doing In Custody by Anita Desai. Clear? Okay then. Moreover, one can say that with no one in the world, he shares, this is on page number 12. Moreover, one can say, I'm zooming in. Moreover, one can say that with no one in this world, he shares a relationship which can provide him with some respite. He is a friend of Murad who uses him to manifest his own motives. He has a wife, Sarla, with whom he does not have a very cordial relationship. He has his devotion for the poet Noor, who is living a debauched life amidst the louts and two cunning wives, and therefore cannot forge a proper relationship of the devotee and the devoted. Thus, Devin suffers from a sense of deep alienation, an alienation which seems to be on the verge of taking him down to the abyss. In this pathetic portrayal of Devin Banita Desai, which makes us look at his character with much sympathy. So, what are we talking about? We're not just talking about this person who is caught between this quagmire of whether he belongs somewhere or not, all right, or whether he would be able to pursue what he wishes to do or not. We're also dealing with a man who cannot express this dilemma to anyone. There is a wife, Sarla, who he cannot talk to properly, all right, and therefore they do not share a great relationship. They do not share a kind of relationship where they can be open about what they want and how they're feeling, how they feel like drowning in the world, how they feel as if they're drowning in the world. There is no expression that he can make in front of her. They do not have that kind of relationship. Then he is a big fan of Noor Shah Zainabadi, who when he gets a chance to meet, he cannot form a real camaraderie. Why? Because of the two cunning wives who are always there at the offing. And then when we talk about his friend, his only friend Murad that he has, he's also manipulated no matter what purpose he is serving in the society. The most important part of here is the way he manipulates and exploits Devin. It only shows that even the one person that Devin can call his friend is not someone he can rely on, is not someone he can say, okay, you are my friend and I'm happy about it. I can express myself in front of you. No, he cannot do that even with Murad. He is even with Murad, even with Sarla, anyone else. All right, so he is being exploited by each and every one, and there is no outlet that he finds in order to express himself. There comes the role of what the psychological novel that we have been talking about, the idea of psychoanalysis of the novel, that how there are many repressed feelings of expression, many repressed feelings of desire, dreams, which have not been mirrored onto, or which have not been projected or manifested by Devane. And even when he gets the chance to do the same, there are only hurdles from around the world. All right, clear? I hope you understand that. No, Mahi, it's not alternate, it's ulterior motive. UL, that is ulterior. Ulterio. Okay, so the ulterior motive is he's just trying to exploit and siphon off some money from Devane. Kanika, you are saying, was no ready to accept that Urdu is a dead language and not trying to preserve it further. And Devane is the one who continues to fight for the good in order to preserve the Urdu language. Right. Yes, Kanika, good. Ria, you are saying, what is the meaning of inherent dichotomies? Dichotomies means, for example, when I say that there is a clear-cut dichotomy to this structure. There is a clear-cut dichotomy that I'm forming. I'm talking about the idea of making clear-cut comparisons. When I'm putting two things in parallel, for example, when we make a line in between and try to write the negatives and positives in that way. The idea of drawing parallelly, the idea of creating binaries and then talking about the difference or similarities. Sunday, you are saying, ma'am, the psychological struggle which Devane faces is also reflected when he repeatedly thinks that whether he should go to the interview, the poet Noor, or not sitting in the bus on his way to Delhi is also thinks about all the bad. Yes. Upasana is asking me after class if I make notes, is it right technique to write first? At first, I would write brief note and then author, then summary of the novel themes. Yes, Upasana, that would be the best way to go about it. It would be easy for you to revise in the examination. Yes, I'll. Pooja, you are saying Devin is fooled so many times in novels, but still he's a heroic character. What does it represent? It represents the fact that, we can say that he's so dumb. It might irritate you to some level that, why is he acting in a certain way? Why is he getting exploited? But we have to consider the fact that he's actually a very novice and sorted person, and therefore he does not understand the ulterior motives of his friends or of the world. Yes, Kushi, right? Okay, Mohammed Chand, you can just refer to the material that I'm doing. We are doing characterizations in Anita Desai's in custody. You're asking, ma'am, what is alienation and abyss? See, alienation is when you are trying to sideline someone. For example, when you alienate someone, if there's a group of people and there's one person that you are asking to leave or you're trying to sideline, then it would be called the idea of alienation. And the idea of abyss, ABIS, is that is something of a, for example, when we say the well has abyss-like structure, so you never know what is the depth of it. There is opaqueness, there is darkness that you cannot talk about. So the idea of abyss, the idea of going so deep down into problems that you cannot make out whether there is an end to it or not. So that the biography you are asking, the biography will not come as it is, but it will be referred to by you in the examination. Okay, Pooja, great. It's clear to you. Anyone else? Anything you wish to ask till now? We have covered the major part, some of the major part that is important for the foundation of the story. So if there's anything that you wish to ask me now, and then we will continue. I'm looking at the live Q&A. You can ask me. All right. Let me check. There are many messages. Just let me check. You can post your queries. I'll take, I'll club some and I'll tell you. Okay. Just keep on posting. I'm watching. All right, Kanchan, you are asking, do we need to learn all the characters? Yes, that's for sure. You have to do that. Khushi, I'm not able to understand the statement that you have made. Can you contextualize it? Who are you talking in context of? Women are the positions of women at that time. In context of Sarla, I think, and in context of the two wives of Noor, I think. Is that right? Siddharth, you said for Devi, Noor is the ideal figure as a poet. Yes. Kanchan, you're asking me about the best way to study. Wait, I'll tell you. Okay, one of you just forward the syllabus on the group again. All right, so that everyone knows about the course. There have been queries about the course. I've already shared everything. Okay, you can just simply look at your syllabus and get to know which books are there in the syllabus or not. Okay, I'm explaining the scheming world. Monica, you are saying scheming world is the idea of a world which is thoroughly manipulative, which is harping on to some plan or the other every time. Scheming, different schemes they're employing in order to exploit you. Okay, there has been question. Okay, so Kanchan C, Kanchan Dikshit. Okay, so the very idea of reading any novel, not just for examination but otherwise, you can just read it. All right, any literary, non-literary work, just read it. So first, go for a denotative reading. That is what I've told you in the very beginning of the class. This is something you might have heard from me for a lot many times. But what does it do? For example, if you have made it a rule that first I'll go for a denotative reading, then I'll go for a quantitative reading. What happens in mathematics also, there is always a formula that you have to employ. After a point of time, maybe you will not need that formula in order to solve the question. But why is it important for you to remember the formula in the very beginning? Because when you're practicing, it should become a norm for you to think in a way. For example, when I say denotative, you should think that okay, when I'm just first of all, I'm going to take a rough read, I'm going to take a quick read, I'm going to analyze, I'm going to dissect for the characters, I'm going to dissect for the theme, I'm going to dissect for the place, circumstances. Okay, once I have been cleared out with the kind of storyline that the text stands for or has, now I'm going to go for a connotative reading. That is, I'm going to see what are these lines or phrases or clauses about. What is it that the writer is trying to say otherwise? The idea of palimpsestic reading. Then you take one layer out and then next layer out. You're trying to analyze that what are the critical framework that the writer might be employing. Is it something that the writer talking about, in terms of the class conflict that we have? Is it a Marxist criticism that the writer is trying to employ? Is it a feminist criticism that the writer is trying to employ? Is it a structuralist criticism that the writer is trying to employ? So all these criticism, all these way of thinking that you employ, is it something of the charge between rich and poor that the writer is making a statement for? Is it some kind of communal tensions that the writer is making a statement for then you analyze the theme, and the next step is that of you relating to it in every true sense. All right, that is you're introducing your own perspective for the same, that what is your stand for the same. That is where and how your literary sensibilities do get activated over here. That is, after a point of time you will have to analyze it. Okay, these are the themes. All right, what is the writer trying to say? I'm going to employ this critical frame. I think that this is what the writer is trying to make a statement for. This is what he's relating to. And then the idea of life and the poem, that how you have experienced something and can relate to it. All right, the idea of intertextuality, that I have read this in other novel and I can relate to it. This shows that you have great literary critical skills. All right, and then you're talking about what you're asking me. Okay, for improving your reading, speaking, any skills, I've already told you, make it a point that I'm going to study, I'm going to read something for half an hour in a day. Even if I do not get the time of half an hour, I'm going to read something for 15 minutes, and you obviously will get the time to do the same. You just have to find it. All right, being a student, it's your primary job. I'm not saying that do not enjoy, you can have all sorts of fun, but when you're studying, even for the 2 3 hours that you're devoting in a day, you should be all in. All right, you should be thorough about your studies. You should be able to say to yourself that yes, I truly added value to my knowledge, I truly added value to my life. So that you're saying Devian is a heroic figure as he's going to face many obstacles, though he's not having a heroism today. Yes. Okay, Nidhi, you're saying what is meant by Noor Shah Zainabadi becoming synonymous with Urdu in the novel. The idea of Noor Shah Zainabadi becoming synonymous with Urdu is a statement against what? The very idea of Noor, first of all, being a connoisseur of this art. All right, writing about the language, finding it extremely beautiful and full of life. But then, over the period of time, due to his circumstances, due to economical hardships, due to the kind of psychological and sociological pressures he has to cope up because of it's not being commercially lucrative, is what makes him dissent from the language, is what makes him disillusioned. And therefore, he becomes synonymous with a language which has degraded over the period of time. Okay, Upasana, thank you so much. If that helps you, I'm very happy. Clear? Let's proceed. Okay, so Noor and his company. When we meet Noor, the famous old Urdu poet in the novel, he's surrounded by lotus and louts and his two wives. Most of these people surrounding Noor do not have any love for Urdu language and literature, but they are there as in Noor's presence, they can enjoy themselves. In such a company that Noor keeps with him, he denigrates further. But he seems to care less about it as he has already accepted the fact that Urdu has lost its past glory and that the times of Urdu is gone. So instead of holding on to the past, he looks forward to good times, even though that is all about living a decadent and debauched life. When Devendra Sharma, a college Hindi lecturer from Mirpur, visits Noor Shah Zainabadi for the first time, he is alarmed to see his venerated poet in such a state of debauchery. The question which naturally comes is, why does Anita Desai present Noor Shah Zainabadi in such a light? Why is that Noor keeps a company of louts to give him company in his drinking? The answer seems to be that with the loss of glory of the Urdu language and literature or poetry, Noor Shah Zainabadi is not able to live up to the standards of what is expected from a renowned poet. He has fallen from his grace as it happened with Urdu language. Noor Shah Zainabadi becomes synonymous with Urdu in the novel. He represents all that Urdu once was and as it is now and what it is going to be in the future. So can you say, are you able to relate to this? Will you be able to write an answer? You can simply look at this passage which talks about how he becomes synonymous with Urdu language. Clear? You can refer to this passage, right? Okay, then let's talk about the idea of this on page number 13, the women characters in the novel. There are three major women characters in the novel. They are Sarla, Deven's wife, Imtiaz Begum, and Safia Begum, two wives of Noor. It is a general tendency in Anita Desai to see the world from a women perspective. But in custody, as in the title of the story, she does something different. Instead of seeing the world from a women perspective, Anita Desai looks at the world from the perspective of men. Apparently, this may look as if Anita Desai is changing her perspective, but that does not lead to any major difference because the three women characters that she creates in the novel show three different aspects of women. Whereas Sarla is a housewife who's least interested about anything else, leave apart Deven's pursuit and love for Urdu poetry or Noor, she had her material she had a material ambition in life, but all those ambitions are thwarted by her marriage to Deven, a college lecturer who does not earn enough to give her the luxuries of life. She has made some arrangement with herself and have accepted the fact that in this life she has no means of achieving her dreams and therefore has become naturally embittered. So what is the writer talking about? The writer is talking about that although in all the novels that we find which have been written by Anita Desai, there is always this primary narrative voice which reflect the perspective of women, that is the story is narrated to the perspective of women, their stance is always being talked about. But in this story, when we see three major women characters, it is not as if they have been given the primary roles to play. What do we mean when we say that? I mean that when the writer is talking about the perspective, when the writer is analyzing the situation, it is the men prism that the writer is using. It is through the prism of the men that the writer is talking about such events. For example, there are three things that we have to talk about. First, whenever you see something, whenever you read something, there is the first act of what? Perception. Then, what is it? Prism. All right, first you form a perspective, first you have a perception, then there is a prism that you might use, and then there is a perspective that you form. So the three P's that we need to essentially talk about, that is, first one is what? Perception, second is what? Prism, and third is what? Perspective. That is, once you have formed a perception, the perception might be different for everyone, even if the same prism is there, that is the same means of how you're going to go about it is there, the perspective that you will form will be varied and multiple. All right, will have multiplicity. So the writer is talking about the fact that even though the women perspective is not given, but the very three stock characters that she creates represent one quality of womanhood in all its true sense. For example, in case of Sarla, the housewife, what does the writer talk about? The writer talks about the fact that how she no longer had any ambition. Earlier, she had many material ambition, but due to the fact that her husband does not earn a lot of money, is a college lecturer and does not earn a lot of money, and therefore those dreams, those material big gains that she talked about and wanted cannot be filled. And therefore, what she has decided to live with this reality all through her life. But that compromise has made her an embittered woman. The idea of being bitter, all right, always being sniding towards, the husband, always making snap comments on just keeping quiet or not becoming a perfect companion. So there is a communication difference between both husband and wife. Clear? Then as against Sarla is the character of Imtiaz Begum, the second wife of Noor Shah Zainabadi, who has come from the world of prostitution but has some natural flair for Urdu language and literature, and herself claims that she is an intellectual partner of Noor. She writes poetry and wishes to get some recognition as a poetess, which she does not get in the novel, apart from the one instance when, on her birthday, she gets a chance to perform before the admirers of Noor. She is an authoritative figure who has much influence on Noor and manages the household according to her wishes. She is an aspiring new woman in the novel. Then, okay, scheming world we will also lead. So, are you able to understand? So, the second wife that we are talking about here is Imtiaz Begum. And why is it important to read her character? Now, this is what we call dichotomy. There is a dichotomy which the writer has created a complete contrast between Sarla, the housewife figure, and Imtiaz Begum, the prostitute figure turned the prostitute figure who has turned from a prostitute to the wife and is now a wife to Noor Shahazan Abadi, and she says that I am the intellectual partner of this person, and she is a very authoritative figure, and therefore there is an both overpowering stench and overpowering. One second. So the idea of an overpowering and overbearing character who will not respect other people's thought process. All right, so therefore Noor feels completely devoid of emotion because there is no one who actually loves Urdu language in any which way possible. All of them are here around him in order to gain some kind of recognition. For example, like the second wife Imtiaz, what she wants herself to become a poetess and get recognition in life, and therefore she's using Noor Shahzan Abadi as a ladder to reach that kind of social status. So everyone around him is also a loiter that the writer mentions. So the idea of always loitering around with these people, of drunken fantasy of these women who are just manipulative, is also one of the prime reasons of what Noor Shahzain becomes. That is, he becomes a failure. He becomes a failed dream, a dream which never could be realized. In spite and instead of inspiring other people to join or rejoice at the art of Urdu poetry, he's the one who is a living example of why we should not go into that field. All right. So that is the most sorry state of his being. That is because of the way he is, there is an essential loss of essence of the culture as well. Clear? Able to understand? This is what we are essentially talking about. And why is it? And now my question to you is, why do you think that Noor Shahzain is now into a drunken stupor, is surrounding himself with people who have no interest? Why do you think he is? Is there something that he's running from? So let's see. We are going to try to do that. Okay. Pooja, you're asking, in this novel, the new women denotes Imtiaz Begum. What does the word new women? New women means the women. The idea of new womanhood over here is that of how a woman is self-aspiring. She was a prostitute, therefore she married. Obviously she married Noor Shahzad Abadi in order to go up the social ladder to get respectability, and now she's trying to make it as a poetess because she thinks that only the very idea of becoming a professional will give her the prestige in this society that she has long more than more than a lifetime she has craved for that. Ria, you are saying what is the difference between perception and perspective? See, when you perceive something, all right, you only perceive it in the first sense. For example, if you read something, if you see something, there is a perception that you find that, oh, I feel that this thing is in this way, this person is in this way, all right. But after a period of time, the prism that you use, that is, you try to understand that person, you try to understand the situation, you read the novel again, you read the text again, you form a perspective that somehow you might have, being judgmental at your perception, and now you can form a different perspective. So that is the basic difference. The very first thing that comes across your mind will come under the category of how you perceive it, and then the perspective that you form after some time of intellectual contemplation is what we call perspective. Yes, Pooja. Okay, Upasana, it's clear, it's good. So tell me, why do you think the poet Noor Shahzan Abadi is running away? We have already read about it, we have already discussed it, but I want the answer from you people. Okay, Pooja, great, great, great. It's clear. Okay, Upasana. So the writer is has surrounded himself with these kind of good for nothing fellows because he feels that this is what he has become. This is what he truly represents, and therefore he should act in a similar way. There is no hope when you're devoid of hope. That is the loss of any language and culture when the best turn good for nothing. When the custodians of the culture, who should have been typically the custodian of the cultures, no longer feel that, we have to take the responsibility for the same. When they feel that they have been so cheated and the merit has been so hurt that they can no longer take the legacy forward. For example, it is understandable for us to, make reason for why Noor Shahzain Abadi is not interested in this language anymore, in the poetry anymore, because no matter how great he was, no matter how much hard work he had put into it, there was no remuneration for the same, no equal remuneration for the same. He suffered all through his life. He cannot keep up the kind of motivation. Nobody, I'm not talking about Noor Shahzan Abadi, I'm talking about each and every person. No one can keep the motivation of doing something without getting anything in return. All right, studying is one other thing. All right, when you're studying, you're gaining knowledge, but when you're working at something and you have a family to look forward to, you have a life to live, it dejects you. It makes you more regretful when you are not able to get any remuneration for the same. It hurts your merit. It hurts the very person that you are, and it leads to a lot of degradation, because no longer, because after a point of time you will also leave. All right, you cannot feel that okay, I can keep up with it. You will also leave. Ria, you have answered. It is because of the reason that with the loss of significance of Urdu language, he can no longer be the poet, as people no longer listen Urdu language, so he feels there is no hope left. Yes, good. Pooja Ketspal, yes, lack of encouragement. Good. Monica, you are writing because Urdu language has been dead, and is this chapter nude is synonymous of Urdu language. Very good. Yes. The idea of the language, the poetry, the profession itself being dead end, that there is no gain in it, no development. He's not getting the bare minimum. How can he expect anything which would be better than that? Okay, Lavanya, you're asking me, ma'am, please explain the meaning of living decadent and debauched life. The idea of living in debauchery, decadent, that is, you're living in poverty, you're living in, you're drinking, you're merrymaking, you're living a hedonistic life. That is, you're living for today. And you're loitering around, you're intoxicated, you are having a lot to drink. So all these factors that are there are under the category of debauchery and decadent. Because now, Lisha, you're saying because now Urdu language has lost its glory and the time of Urdu is gone. That's why he took forward to good times as he lived in a debauched life. And do you think there is a hope for a good time? Are there going to be great times for him ahead? Do you think? Are there going to be great times for him ahead that he's going to enjoy and have fun with? Tell me, do you think, is there a hope for a better future? Is there a hope for a better future? Khushi was saying because his love for Urdu was not recognized and not significant. Okay, Upasana, you are saying being compared with Deve. Oh, let's see. Sandhya, you are saying ma'am is surrounding himself with the sort of people because Urdu language has lost its glory and it's not in demand nowadays, and it has lost its royalty and has become dead language. He's feeling heartbroken and depressed. Yes, and this is not, we are not talking about the present times, we are talking about the time. So the language has been dead for decades now, in a way. We're talking about the story has been written far back in time. Okay, let's finish off. We will be finishing with this so that we can deal with the other parts of it in the last two classes that we have. That's on Saturday and Sunday. So it's important we do with it. I think the next we have is on Yes, 28th and 29th. So if there's any query till now, you can ask me. I'll be checking the Q&A. Okay, let me check the Q&A. Just wait. So post your queries over here. Okay, wait. There are many. I'm just scrolling. I've scrolled some. Yes, yes, Nikita, thank you for reminding me the same. We will do it tomorrow, don't worry. Yes, Nidhi. Yes, Sada. Your answers. Yeah, you're saying. Okay, yes, Nikita, the next class. The answer can be yes and no because there can be future because of people like Devane who are making efforts for the language at the same time. At the same time, the answer can be no, also as there is no hope left in the poet. So without hope, there is no future, right? Sandhya saying, yes, ma'am, we should always be hopeful no matter how hard the circumstances are. Yes. Kanika, you have written Noor lives in a very bad condition and is in overall poor physical and mental health. He is not interested in preserving the language further because he has worked very hard for whole of his life and still he's not getting the respect and recognition that he deserves. Right. Yes, Nidhi. He did a lot in his field, but in return, what he got losing the glory of the language. Yes. Yes, Sadia. We will cover the dramas that have been left, one poetry, and the background. Any one of that. We will start. Short stories we have. Wait, I'll tell you. We have short stories. I think yes, we will do short stories in the next one. In the next class, we are going to deal with short stories. Okay. Yes. So you have answered. Nevertheless, it all takes your mental strength to do so. You will have to do it. Okay, let us finish this off. I'll tell you which parts to read once more. All right. Okay, brief summary. Let's read a bit of it. I will just I will just begin it with you. Warm up we can have for this one, and then you can read it on your own. Let's read this. Before going into the summary of the chapters, it is essential that you understand the ways in which a story and a plot of a narrative or a literary piece of work differs from each other. Based on the classical notion of plot and its difference from story, the formalists make a point about how defamiliarization technique is used by narrative writers, though it is to be kept in mind here that the concept of plot for Aristotle and for formalists are very different. According to the formalists, there is a clear distinction between plot and story. A plot is an artful disposition of incidents, whereas a story is a raw material whereby artfully disposed to it is a plot. It's a very basic factual things that you can read on your own. So the idea of chapter one, Anita Desai's novel In Custody, opens with the appearance of Murad at Mirpur, where Devain is a lecturer of Hindi in a college. So Murad has traveled from all the way from Delhi to Mirpur in order to meet Devain. Murad is editor of an Urdu magazine, Awaz, and he has come to his friend Devain to cajole him to interview the famous Urdu poet Noor at his house in Old Delhi. Two friends, Murad and Devin, go out to bazaar to have lunch, where they discuss the problem related to their respective finances. Devin shows his grievance as he is not being paid for the poems and reviews in Murad magazine. Murad, on the other hand, informs him that his magazine business is not a success at all, and yet he is carrying on with it because of the greatest illustrious tradition of Urdu poetry. Murad informs Devin that he wants some new work so as to complete the feature on Noor, and requests Devin to go to Delhi and find Noor. So what is it that somebody was also asking, what is the ulterior motive of Murad that we are essentially talking about here? The ulterior motive is that of how he did not pay up Devain for any of the poetries and ghazals that he contributed to the magazine, and he himself is very commercially he's himself is a business shark that we can call him, because he is constantly exploiting people and not paying them enough while selling the magazines and pocketing all the profit for himself. So this is how you have to analyze the summary. You can see it's very easy to understand also. You will not be in loss of understanding in this. For example, in the town of Mirpur is very gloomy and dull to Devin, and he finds it to be a place of his boredom and separation. So somehow Devin's journey from Mirpur to Delhi is seen as a respite by him. On his way to Delhi, the landscape that he encounters is base, which is to some extent an extension of Devin's mind. In other words, empty landscape that he sees seems to be an outpouring which is analogous to his own by the wasteland of his own existence. So the idea of the scenery also, the setting also of the novel representing and reflecting onto the mood of the main character. So this is how you have to analyze. I hope that's clear to you. All right. We will continue with the short stories in the next class. All right, do read everything that has been left. We will be covering the poem also. Just remind me once again the next one. Shruti, there might have been some loss from your side. I don't see people saying. Yes, Vidhi. Okay, so I'll be telling you about the book. If there's any, you can simply refer to the study material also, because if you do not want to buy a book for the same, you can Google search some short stories that you will find for free, all right, to download, all right, that you can do. So okay, we will continue with the class with the readings in the next one. Okay, till then, all of you take care, study well. Okay, be safe. All right, let's call it a day. Read what we have already covered in the class today. So do read it. All right, all of you have a good day.